I never thought my entire career would come crashing down with just a handshake and a smirk, until the day I turned the tables on the man who destroyed everything I'd built. Hit that like button and subscribe to see how I went from rock bottom to bringing a billion-dollar company to its knees. Caroline, we're going in a different direction. Those 6 words changed my life forever. I sat across from Richard Blackwell, CEO of Vertex Technologies, as he slid a termination letter toward me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. 8 years of my life dedicated to this company, countless weekends sacrificed, and now I was being tossed aside like yesterday's garbage. I don't understand, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The quantum algorithm project is nearly complete. We're weeks away from the breakthrough. Richard leaned back in his leather chair, the corner office view of Manhattan behind him like some cliché backdrop for a power play. The board feels the project is too ambitious. We're pivoting toward more immediate revenue streams. What he didn't say was what I already knew. My project, my algorithm, was the crown jewel of Vertex's future. I'd been developing a quantum computing solution that would revolutionize data processing for everything from medical research to financial modeling. It wasn't just ambitious, it was transformative. You mean you're taking my work and putting someone else in charge, I said, the realization dawning on me. Someone more compliant. That's when he laughed. A short, dismissive chuckle that felt like a slap across my face. Caroline, let's not make this personal. You'll receive 3 months severance. You should consider yourself lucky. Lucky. As if being robbed of my life's work was some kind of lottery win. This is my life's work, Richard. You can't just— I can and I have, he interrupted, standing to signal our meeting was over. The project belongs to Vertex. Your contributions have been noted in your file. My file. 8 years reduced to a note in a personnel record that would probably be archived and forgotten. I gathered my things in a cardboard box while security waited to escort me out. My team watched in stunned silence. These were people I'd mentored, led through impossible deadlines, celebrated birthdays with. Now they couldn't even meet my eyes. All except Mia, my right-hand programmer, who whispered, "This isn't right, Caroline. We all know it." The April rain soaked through my blouse as I stood on the sidewalk outside the Vertex Tower, holding my pathetic box of desk plants and family photos. 8 years reduced to items that fit in a single container. My security badge had already been deactivated. Just like that, I was an outsider. I took the subway home to my apartment in Brooklyn, a place I mostly used for sleeping between marathon work sessions. Now it felt hollow, like a hotel room rather than a home. I set the box down on my kitchen counter and did what any self-respecting professional would do. I opened a bottle of wine and drank straight from it while scrolling through my contacts. Who could I even call? My social circle had shrunk to colleagues who now had to pretend I didn't exist if they wanted to keep their jobs. My parents were retired in Arizona. My college friends had drifted away years ago when I kept canceling plans to work on just one more algorithm. My phone buzzed with a text from Mia. "They've already put Jenkins in charge of quantum. He's saying it was his concept all along." Jenkins. The ultimate corporate climber who couldn't code his way out of a paper bag, but knew exactly whose back to pat. Of course they'd choose him. I finished half the bottle before a dangerous clarity settled over me. They thought they could just take my work, my ideas, and erase me from the equation? 8 years of my life, of innovative thinking they couldn't match in a million years? I opened my laptop and pulled up my personal cloud storage. For years, I'd been meticulous about keeping my breakthrough insights in private notes. Not the official documentation that belonged to Vertex, but my original thinking, the connections no one else saw. I'd developed the core algorithm on my own time, before bringing the concept to the company. The non-compete clause in my contract was strict but not airtight. They owned the specific implementation I'd developed for them, but the underlying mathematical concept? That was mine. And without my notes, without my mental framework, Jenkins and his team would struggle for months, maybe years, to recreate what I'd accomplished. I created a new folder and began organizing my thoughts, my private breakthrough moments, the theoretical underpinnings of what would become my own patent application. Vertex thought they'd fired a disposable engineer. They didn't realize they'd just created their most dangerous competitor. The next morning, I woke with a pounding headache and an email from HR with details about my severance package and a reminder about my continuing obligations to protect Vertex's intellectual property. I replied with a single sentence acknowledging receipt and then made 2 calls. First to Angela Wright, a patent attorney I'd met at a Women in Tech conference 2 years earlier. Then to Daniel Kessler, a former colleague who'd left Vertex to join Lumina Systems, a smaller but ambitious competitor in the quantum computing space. Daniel, it's Caroline Westbrook. Caroline? I heard what happened. That's some serious bull. I need a meeting with your leadership team. I have something they're going to want to see. There was a pause on the line. You know I'd love to help you, but your non-compete is with Vertex's proprietary implementation. What I want to show Lumina is something entirely different, something better. 3 days later, I sat in Lumina's modest conference room facing their executive team. My patent application was already filed, and Angela had confirmed I was on solid legal ground. The approach Vertex is taking has a fundamental flaw, I explained, sketching on the whiteboard. They're using a brute force method that will hit a computational wall. What I've developed is an elegant workaround, a completely different approach to the same problem. Lumina's CTO leaned forward, his eyes widening as he followed my logic. This is revolutionary. It is, I agreed. And it's mine, not Vertex's. The CEO, Sarah Donovan, studied me carefully. Unlike Richard's polished corporate veneer, Sarah had the intense focus of someone who'd built her company from nothing. You understand what you're proposing would put you directly against Vertex. They'll fight this with everything they have. Let them, I said with more confidence than I felt. My algorithm works. Theirs won't, not without my framework. They just don't know it yet. By the end of the meeting, I had a job offer as Lumina's new director of quantum research, with a salary that made my previous compensation look like pocket change. More importantly, I had a platform to develop my algorithm the right way, without corporate politics and credit-stealing vultures. I spent the next 8 months building a new team, refining my algorithm, and pushing the boundaries of what was possible in quantum computing. We worked in a converted warehouse in Brooklyn, away from the corporate glass towers. And there was an energy, a purpose that I'd never felt at Vertex even in the best times. Mia joined me 3 months in, bringing with her 2 other brilliant programmers who'd grown disenchanted with Vertex's new direction. Jenkins is failing, she told me over lunch on her first day. They're months behind where we should be, and Blackwell is starting to panic. How bad is it? I asked, trying not to sound too eager for details. Bad enough that the board is asking questions. Jenkins keeps promising breakthroughs that never materialize. She lowered her voice. And get this. They've brought in consultants to basically recreate your notes. It's like watching someone try to build a rocket without a blueprint. I didn't take pleasure in their struggles. Well, maybe a little. But my focus was on building something better, not on revenge. Revenge was just a satisfying side effect. The real vindication came when Lumina announced our breakthrough to the world. We'd created a quantum algorithm that could process complex datasets exponentially faster than conventional methods. The applications were endless: medical research, climate modeling, financial systems. The tech media went wild. Our phones rang off the hook with partnership inquiries, and our stock price doubled overnight. I gave interviews to tech publications where I carefully described my novel approach without mentioning Vertex. I didn't need to drag them publicly. Success was a much sweeter revenge. Then came the news that changed everything. Bloomberg reported that Vertex was in talks for a $4 billion merger with Titan Global, a tech giant looking to expand into quantum computing. The deal hinged on Vertex's supposedly groundbreaking quantum algorithm, the very project they'd taken from me. Angela called me immediately. Caroline, have you seen this? They're valuing the company based on technology they don't actually have functional yet. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that Titan Global should know exactly what they're buying, and more importantly, what they're not buying. The next day, I sent a formal letter to Titan's board of directors. It outlined my patent, provided evidence of its priority over anything Vertex was developing, and clearly explained how Vertex's approach was fundamentally flawed and would never deliver what they were promising. I wasn't being vindictive. I was simply ensuring that a major business transaction wasn't proceeding under false pretenses. At least, that's what I told myself. Within hours, Titan's legal team requested an emergency meeting with me and Angela. 2 days later, we sat across from their chief counsel and head of acquisitions in their Manhattan offices. "Ms. Westbrook, we've reviewed your materials," the acquisition director said. "Our technical team confirms your patent appears to leapfrog what Vertex has shown us. This complicates things." "I can imagine," I replied, keeping my expression neutral. "May I ask what your intention is here? Are you looking for compensation from Titan?" Angela jumped in smoothly. "My client is simply ensuring that Titan Global has complete information before making a major investment. However, if Titan is interested in truly cutting-edge quantum computing technology, they might be talking to the wrong company." It wasn't subtle, but it was effective. Within a week, Titan had put their deal with Vertex on hold for further technical review. Their representatives were now in talks with Lumina about a potential partnership. Not an acquisition, but a strategic investment that would let us maintain our independence while gaining access to Titan's vast resources. News of the delayed merger hit the tech press like wildfire. Speculation about Vertex's technology became increasingly skeptical. One particularly cutting analysis in TechCrunch questioned whether Vertex had ever been close to the breakthrough they claimed. The day the Vertex-Titan deal officially collapsed, Vertex's stock dropped nearly 30%. Financial analysts were brutally assessing the company's prospects now that their quantum computing promises appeared hollow. I was working late at our Brooklyn office when my phone rang with an unknown number. Caroline Westbrook. I balanced the phone between my ear and shoulder as I continued typing. "It's Richard Blackwell." My fingers froze over the keyboard. "Richard, this is unexpected. I think we should talk." His voice lacked the smooth confidence I remembered. "In person." I shouldn't have agreed, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a quiet bar halfway between our offices. Richard looked like he'd aged years and months. His designer suit hanging slightly loose, dark circles under his eyes. "You've made your point," he said after ordering a scotch. "Very effectively. I haven't been trying to make a point. I've been building something important." He swirled his drink. "You could have come to me first before going to Titan, given us a chance to adjust our approach." I laughed then, the same dismissive chuckle he'd given me the day he fired me. "Like the chance you gave me before taking my project and handing it to Jenkins?" Richard had the decency to look uncomfortable. "That was a board decision. Politics. You know how it works." "I do now." I sipped my wine. "Is that why you wanted to meet? To explain corporate politics to me?" "I wanted to propose a truce, maybe even a collaboration. Vertex still has resources Lumina doesn't. We could—" "Stop," I interrupted. "You fired me because I wouldn't be controlled. You laughed while doing it. And now that it's blown up in your face, you want to collaborate? That's not how this works, Richard." His expression hardened. "You've made a powerful enemy, Caroline." "No, I've made a powerful statement." "There's a difference." I stood up, leaving my wine half-finished. "I suggest you focus on saving your company instead of threatening me. From what I hear, your board is looking for someone to blame for the Titan disaster." As I walked out, I felt no triumph, no vindication, just a calm certainty that I was finally on the right path. I didn't need revenge. I needed to build something meaningful on my own terms. 2 weeks later, Vertex announced a strategic reorganization. Richard was taking an extended leave of absence to pursue personal interests. Corporate speak for being pushed out. Jenkins was reassigned to an obscure legacy project. The quantum computing division was being reevaluated. Meanwhile, Lumina was thriving. Our partnership with Titan wasn't just about money, though the influx of capital certainly helped. It was about scale. Their infrastructure combined with our algorithm created possibilities neither of us could have achieved alone. I built a team culture that valued transparency and recognition. Every contributor to our project was acknowledged, from senior engineers to the interns who helped with testing. We instituted a policy where breakthrough ideas were documented with the originator's name, regardless of their position in the company hierarchy. Sarah, Lumina's CEO, understood what I was trying to create. "You're not just building an algorithm," she said during one late-night strategy session. "You're building a template for how innovation should work." 6 months after the Vertex Titan deal collapsed, we were ready to demonstrate our quantum solution to the world. We chose to debut it by partnering with a major cancer research center, using our processing power to analyze genetic patterns in tumor samples that would have taken traditional computers years to process. The night before the demonstration, I couldn't sleep. I stood on my apartment balcony looking at the Brooklyn Bridge lit up against the night sky. 8 years at Vertex, I'd been so focused on the technology that I'd forgotten to ask the most important question: what was it all for? Now I had my answer. Our first real-world application would help researchers identify potential treatments for previously untreatable cancers. This wasn't about stock prices or merger deals or proving Richard wrong. It was about using technology to solve problems that mattered. The demonstration was a resounding success. When the lead researcher announced that our algorithm had identified 3 previously unknown genetic markers that could lead to targeted therapies, there wasn't a dry eye in the room. This was real impact, measurable in human lives, not just dollars. The following months proved me right. Lumina's partnership with Titan accelerated our research beyond what either of us could have accomplished alone. Our quantum processing solution was being implemented in cancer research, climate modeling, and financial systems worldwide. I built a team that valued innovation over office politics, collaboration over competition. We weren't perfect. No organization is. But we created a culture where credit went where it was due, and good ideas mattered more than good connections. Vertex survived, though Richard didn't. The board replaced him 3 months after the Titan deal collapsed. They pivoted away from quantum computing, back to their core business. Jenkins disappeared into middle management obscurity. A year after I was fired, I received an unexpected email from Richard. No subject line, just a brief message. "You were right. About everything. Not that it matters now." I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Success wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if they hadn't fired me. If Richard hadn't laughed that day, would I have eventually broken free on my own? Or would I have remained fighting the same battles, making incremental progress while watching others take credit for my vision? I don't know. But as I stand on the stage at the National Innovation Summit accepting the award for Breakthrough Technology of the Year, I'm grateful for that moment of clarity when I realized my worth didn't depend on their validation. "This award belongs to everyone at Lumina who believed in this vision," I say into the microphone, scanning the audience where my team is cheering. "And to everyone who's ever been underestimated or pushed aside, remember that sometimes the greatest opportunity comes disguised as failure." As I return to my seat, my phone buzzes with a news alert. Titan Global completes acquisition of Lumina Systems in record $8.2 billion deal. The announcement would go public tomorrow, but our team already knew. Unlike Vertex's failed merger, this wasn't a desperate play. It was a partnership built on genuine innovation and mutual respect. I would stay on as Chief Innovation Officer with complete autonomy over my research division. That night, we celebrate at a rooftop bar overlooking the Brooklyn Bridge. Mia raises a toast. To Caroline, who taught us all that the best revenge isn't just success, it's creating something that matters. I smile and lift my glass, but my mind is already racing ahead to our next breakthrough. Because that's the real lesson I learned through all of this. Success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right, over and over again. Last week, I spotted Richard at a coffee shop near Central Park. He was in casual clothes, reading a newspaper, looking oddly at peace. For a moment, I considered going over to him, not to gloat, but maybe to acknowledge that strange twist of fate that had changed both our lives. In the end, I just ordered my coffee and left. Our stories had diverged, and there was no point trying to weave them back together. He had his path now, and I had mine. The money, the recognition, even the satisfaction of watching Richard Blackwell's downfall, none of that compares to the feeling of building something that changes the world. That's the victory that truly matters. And nobody can fire you from that. As I walk through our expanded offices, watching teams collaborate on projects that will help predict natural disasters, optimize energy grids, and accelerate drug discovery, I think about that rainy day when I stood outside Vertex with my cardboard box. If I could go back in time, I'd tell myself something I've come to believe with absolute certainty. Sometimes being pushed off a cliff is exactly what you need to discover you can fly.